Coalition government is nothing to be afraid of. After June 4th, we will work together. Coalition government functions very differently. The coalition will work on a state-by-state basis. Fair to say that it would be very unlike what we've seen in the last 10 years. BJP has lost its grip on the narrative.
So, Thiru, we saw reservation and constitution dominating the election discourse in the first two phases. Do you think it's going to be same in the other phases? Or it's going to change, given that Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah are claiming now that once in power, India Bloc leaders are going to fight for PM seat. So do you think that narration is going to change now?
Look, I don't know to what extent people are going to be influenced by that. It is true that a coalition government functions very differently from a monolithic one-party government. And particularly given Mr. Modi's style, the personality cult built around him, and the way the BJP has been ruling, I think it's fair to say that it would be very unlike what we've seen in the last 10 years. But on the other hand, the record and experience of the Indian public with coalition governments has been rather good. And if you look at the growth performance, for example, of the Indian economy, it has actually grown better under coalition governments than under single-party governments. And you can look throughout the 75, 77 years of our independence, and you'll see that's true. So in many ways, the advantage of a coalition is that there won't be sort of any autocratic tendencies, whoever becomes prime minister. They will have to take into account the others. And frankly, this is the classic political theory of parliamentary systems of governance. Right now, we are seeing a parliamentary system being run presidentially, which is the worst of both worlds. A presidential system, a normal presidential system, has the great merit that the legislature is totally independent of the executive, can challenge the executive and hold it accountable. A parliamentary system, once the executive emerges from the legislature is captured by the executive. Now, we have that system, but it's being run presidentially, so we have the worst of both worlds. Now, what I was going to say is that if you had a coalition government of the India Alliance, you're going to see for the first time in a long while a prime minister who's the first among equals, who has to listen to others, take their point of view into account, and who would have to be a good manager. Mr. Vajpayee is considered in many ways an excellent example of that kind of consensus builder. He didn't have a majority, far from it. He had 26 parties in his coalition, but his government was able to deliver effective results and at the same time reassure Indians that they had a functioning government. Dr. Manmohan Singh, he had more seats than Mr. Vajpayee did, but he didn't have a majority either. And the way in which Dr. Manmohan Singh was able to pursue very relentlessly his economic goals and to preside over the best growth period India has ever seen is again a tribute to the fact that he was able to bring his coalition along with him. Now, on one issue, the coalition of UPA 1 broke and the left us and weren't there in UPA 2. So that becomes a different story. And there's always a risk that on some issue of principle, a prime minister may have to draw the line with one or more of his coalition partners. But that's again something the nation has seen before, and we've gone past it. We are able to cope. So my own view is, let us be reassured that our history in operating the system and the constitution we have has by and large safeguarded the interests of the Indian people. There have been many periods where people were absolutely doomsaying about our country, and we have come through all those periods. I mean, go back and look at your PTI dispatches of 89 to 91, for example. I mean, you would really be forgiven for thinking the country was going to, in the American expression, going to hell in a handbasket. And look at us. After 91, we had some of the best years of growth and prosperity. I would say to you all that coalition government is nothing to be afraid of. And certainly when I speak to most voters, they are thinking in terms of who is the candidate I'm voting for. What values does he represent or she represent? Who do they want to bring to power in Delhi, and what kind of, how is that power going to be exercised? We'll see. Maybe I'm unduly influenced by the kind of electorate I have been amongst for the last 2 months in Kerala. But I'm now going to travel to many other states, and I'll tell you what I'm picking up wherever I go. My own feeling, frankly, is unchanged, that this is an election for change. And given the long length of time, I fully accept the narrative could once again change. But right now, the BJP has lost its grip on the narrative. The sort of hubristic narrative before the first phase is over. I don't think we're going to hear people saying "Ab ki baar 400 par" again for some time to come.
Coalition governments might be a good thing, but isn't in the run-up to this elections there have been so many contradictions between the alliance partners, even in your state. bitter exchanges. In Delhi, Mr. Lovely left recently. Do you think under that circumstances would a coalition be cohesive?
Look, the only reason you're able to ask this question is because a coalition did try to come together before the elections. If you look at the UPA, it came together after the elections. If you look at Vajpayee Saab's coalition, it was built together after the elections. So the truth is that in our country, coalitions come after polling for the most part. This is an unusual case where a serious attempt was made to bring people together before voting even took place. And it was very clear to all of us, and certainly I've said so in interviews many, many months ago, that the coalition will work on a state-by-state basis. One of the reasons I was saying that is in my own state. It is unthinkable that the Congress, which leads the UDF in Kerala, and the communists who lead the LDF in Kerala would ever be partners in Kerala. It was unthinkable. We have been fighting each other at loggerheads for the last 55 years and alternating in power until the last election. So there was no question at all of that even being feasible. Having said that, right next door in Tamil Nadu, the same parties, CPM, CPI, Congress and our ally, the Muslim League, and the DMK, are all partners, have been partners, have continued to be partners, there's no issue. So each state in our country has its own political character. And you can't just wish that away, sitting in a newspaper office and drawing up a paper strategy. So it was always clear that there would be disagreements depending on each state's narrative, which is why I was not surprised when Aam Aadmi Party said yes in Delhi and no in Punjab. And for that matter, our people said no in Punjab also. So you have to understand that there is a different political character in each state that will determine this kind of outcome. Now, finally, when it comes to the day of reckoning on the 4th of June, I have no doubt that all these parties, whether or not they're campaigning together or against each other, including the TMC, when we have the numbers to prevent the BJP coming to power, we will come together. I have no doubt about that. I have no reason to believe otherwise. In fact, I have friends in parties that are not allied to us and who are telling me after June 4th, we will work together.